I'm pretty impressed too. Actually, been given this chance to sit down and listen to the initial speakers, and it was pretty interesting to actually find out about the plans. And the interesting part that I was telling them earlier when I got here was the Philippines was really looking at Clark as essentially going to be the next BGC. In the Philippines, our head office is in BGC in Taguig. And if not for the pandemic that happened in 2019, every banks were already looking at Clark area to put up all our branches, expand our network, because you're not expecting to just see buildings rising here, but you're actually going to expect communities coming up. There was that property purchase that our dear Undersecretary mentioned, and that's really because everyone was looking after at Clark. And I think BSP is still very interested to focus on that, and Maybank is one of them who's going to actually make sure that we play a big role also in such development. Now, this afternoon, typically when I do my talk, it's really intended to actually apprise people about what's going to happen financially. But rather than keep you bored and just go about so many information, I'd like to actually entice your attention towards what's really has been happening now that the pandemic is almost done. It's not yet totally over. There's going to be new diseases perhaps coming out, but the truth of the matter is the country is actually on the rebound, and we're actually expecting ourselves to become a primary global power also in the next coming 10 years. In fact, I'll try to excite you by knowing that as far as financially is concerned, the Philippines is poised towards becoming a major economic power by 2035. Hopefully, that does happen. Okay? So, a little bit of some financial information intended really to make us appreciate that a lot of things are happening. I mean, this is my first time to hear about all these plans about the national broadband. There was this huge complex that I saw about PLDT, and there was a mention about, obviously, this particular facility. And why is that all of those things happening? We never imagined that this session, would be here to actually listen to all the speakers, not necessarily mine, but to all the other speakers. Because during the pandemic, we all thought everything was simply just going southward. During the pandemic, our economic fundamentals were basically all going down. And you probably would like to know why. Because the Philippines all this time have always been heavy on mobility. Majority of those that are bringing the business here are your call centers, your BPOs, our people whom we are sending as our talents abroad, and everything was so dependent about mobility. Ever wonder how come that they started putting together the decongestion plan? They were trying to put out all this business from Manila, going to Clark, going to other locations, because it's really all about mobility. The challenge is that pandemic did not provide that excuse for our country. And this is what happened to us. Obviously, it was a rude awakening. We could not actually move. And the Philippines was actually from a tiger-poised economy going down the drain and becoming one of the lowest performing country also in Asia. Well, this is our post-pandemic situation. Right after, when everyone was opening up and we are being allowed to move, businesses started getting excited. Ever wonder how come that after the pandemic, there seems to be more new business coming out? Although these businesses are a little bit different from how the businesses of the past were actually being put up. A lot of us are going online. A lot of us going digital. A lot of us are believing that things were really just going to be different. It's true. Majority of the movers now are no longer those that are dependent on the mobility aspect. We heard about the successful story about somebody who's now able to do call center job at home. And because obviously the environment is changing. Now, I would not actually feel bad knowing that I'm a 90s person. I've seen how everything has changed, and this is also what we've been trying to do with Maybank. Our biggest advantage of being an international organization is we're not limited to what we have here in the Philippines, but we're now poised to even bring all those technologies that we have also in KL. In fact, sooner than later, you will hear about us because we will not only connect all those companies that are dealing with us locally in the Philippines, but we're also going to create that international market for all of you, all of them, to actually do their interconnection sooner than later, digitally as well. Branch banking is no longer about physical offices. Although I would be interested to take a look at this facility because my only branch in Clark is somewhere down, close to Angeles, Pampanga. I have another one in Angeles. I have another one in San Fernando. But I'm actually really looking at putting up 2 more branches here in the area. But I would like to do more hybrid. So it's not really going to be your typical branch where you see tellers, new accounts, and the like. But we're also thinking of doing a little bit hybrid on digital. So I'm happy just to be here. But going back to this particular topic, this is where we went right after the pandemic. So far, you still got the benefit of having remittances. This coming December is another, heyday for the economy. But the truth of the matter is the Philippines is truly rebounding. You might not actually agree with me because you've seen a lot of our fellow mates still, reeling from the effects of the pandemic. But as far as we are concerned, and as far as what BSP is seeing and all the other banks, we've simply been pressured to become extra aggressive because there's so many new businesses coming out. And I'm excited also because just like you, we're looking at the potential of Clark, or probably looking at the potential of the economy. Having heard about that plan on broadband, then obviously nothing bad should actually come out after all these things. 2033, this is what I mentioned. I mean, this study is not something that came from us in Maybank, but we share the same study that came from Mr. Rajiv Biswas. He is the Executive Director of an Asia Pacific Chief Economist of S&P Global. He is saying, to our surprise perhaps today, but we should be excited to know that this will happen, come 2033, we might actually have an economy that is almost equal to the economy of South Korea. Now, this is expected to happen, hence we are also doing our best to also encourage all the businesses, take advantage. There was a mention about leveraging on digital connection, on broadband. Banks are also saying that. Businesses, you also have to leverage on the abilities and the support and all these facilities that financial institutions are also giving out. BSP has been very aggressive. For us, we do not want to get all the customers. Maybank would rather work with the rest of the banks in the Philippines because whatever they do, we do. The only thing that gets for us is the fact that we can actually bring Asia to you as well. We say this, you open an account with Maybank Philippines, we don't just simply open the door for you to our bank. We actually open the door for you for Asia. And you will see this because Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and some parts of China were also present in Vietnam and 4 other countries. During the pandemic, let me just give this quick anecdote. When I first joined Maybank after coming from an expat job in Myanmar, I was actually pretty much interested to find out how can I actually help make the organization successful in terms of, how can we expand? I only have 60 branches in the Philippines for information. But in Malaysia, I'm actually the #1 bank there. I'm actually of course, I'll mention lang, I don't have any issues with it. I'm technically like the BDO of Malaysia. But having 60 branches, I mean, you would probably think, how can we actually survive a market that is divided by several thousands of islands? And how can I actually reach out to you guys? Though I'm thinking of putting up more branches, the idea is I don't actually have to put more physical structure just to get to customers. And that is where I think banks like us are fully capitalizing on the opportunity that hybrid setup can give. Okay, so we're doing that. Now, this particular promise that is already projected by the experts is shared by Maybank because the Philippines is also going to start taking part in the global interaction of all economic activities across Pan-Asia. And this is where we feel we can play a very big role. Not to preempt also, we are about to launch the very first Islamic banking also in the Philippines because we have been sought by BSP to help them out to finally put up a real deal Islamic banking for all our fellow Muslim brothers, not only in Mindanao, but across the country. That will now bridge the way for us to actually do interactions with the rest of all the other markets in Pan-Asia. So we are also putting up a digital marketplace where by the time you have an account with Maybank, be that a regular savings account, a regular checking account, or if you do intend to borrow money from us, we will not stop by only promising you good service or personalized service. That for me, having worked for the banking industry for 22 years, is really passé. It's not really as attractive. But our greatest proposition to you and to the rest of those people we'd like to work with here in Pampanga is this. Get that account with us. and we will make sure to find you a possible partner, supplier, or any business engagement in all the other Pan-Asia countries to which we are present. We did that po during the pandemic. I don't know if you noticed, the first country that locked down and started clamping on economic activity was obviously, unfortunately, they say the source of the pandemic. As early as December, they decided to close shop. And you actually, or you may have actually been part of those companies to which you were worried because your raw materials were coming from that country and you could not continue your business because there's no more economic activity. They closed shop. Now, my first suggestion when I joined Maybank was to actually start tapping on our vast resources across Asia outside of China. We started bringing some of our customers in Caloocan who are relying on raw materials from China to actually start talking to some of our customers in Malaysia with the same raw material, a little bit expensive obviously, but at least we got to help them continue their business for additional 2-3 months. And that for us is actually big. And that's exactly what we wanted to do and what we wanted to provide given this particular promise. This is not our words. This is the words of the expert, but we share this because we do also see our own financials and we believe that the Philippines and Maybank together with BDO, BPI, Metrobank, Security Bank, RCBC, and all the other good performing local banks are also sharing. Our fundamental post-pandemic is really going to still rely on remittances. That's not going to be something that will change. But with you guys here and with all of these, booming businesses from retail to non-retail to corporates are going to actually even support it. And again, it is just but incidental. I never knew that that's going to be the topic of our beloved Undersecretary. But that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense because if we want to actually grow, the first thing that we need to do is let us all have ourselves interconnected. Because that's the only way we can really go into that particular aspiration. So, by 2023, as I mentioned earlier, so I just got back, we might eventually become a $1 trillion economy. Now, if you are still starting or you are in the middle of such growth, then I strongly suggest continue to be bullish about the opportunities in the Philippines. Explore with us, and who knows, we may even give you another alternative in terms of your other opportunities outside of the country, but are also in Asia. We're also busy introducing the Malaysian businesses and the Singaporean businesses to some local counterparts. So if you're interested to do business with all the other big businesses in Asia, reach out to us. Don't open an account yet. We don't require you doing that, but we can provide you that assistance. We can link you with them. That digital marketplace we're launching by this year will essentially open the door for you in Asia. And who knows, you may be a small restaurant today, but you can actually open a chain of restaurants, not just in the Philippines, but also in Singapore, with the help of whatever resource we can provide you. And that's exactly how even banks are changing. We're no longer just into deposit, we're not just no longer in credit cards, in mortgage, in auto loans, we're basically also in business matching. We'd like to be a primary player in matching businesses for the Philippines. Leveraging is always a ladder, I say. This one, I personally believe. There was a mention about leveraging on digital, leveraging on people, leveraging on facilities. But what I truly would like to say here on the financial aspect, leverage with your bank. Doesn't have to be us. But you can always leverage with all your bank partners. Continue to maximize what you can get with them. If they do lack a bit of what they can provide, that's the first thing that probably will entice you to take a look at other banks. Then we would like to offer ourselves as an alternative. Because if you actually do leveraging, even during pandemic when the economy was contracting, it can help you still support your cash flow. We were lending money even when businesses were actually closing that time. Of course, we have to follow a certain parameter, but one of the first things that you'd find out about who we are, we actually stand by our commitment to humanize financial services. So there were several small businesses who actually had to endure some problems, but we actually got to support them because they've been our loyal clients for some time already. It does provide you capital, it does provide you the opportunity to be seized. But now that the economy is growing, and hopefully this continues with all these movements happening, then obviously leveraging will still be a major ladder for you. So if you got this banking relationship with them, with us, let's talk. We can help you identify other opportunities. We're not just here to supply additional capital. We're here also to bridge you to other business opportunities elsewhere. And finally, this one. Some of you, on an individual basis, probably own properties. Not necessarily as big as what the rich people would have, probably not too much as some of the big companies may have, but allow me to share you this thought. This is a very practical thought, but this can be a very powerful, eye-opening thought for some of us, whether you're owning this business or you wanted to do something. Value is only valuable only if it is valued. Let me repeat. A value becomes only valuable if it is valued. Put that into a business financial context. I own a lot. I own a house and lot. And I would always tell myself exactly what my dad, my lolo, my great-grandfather told me, hold on to that property because you will never go wrong. Because land never depreciates, it appreciates. But how often does this land would appreciate in the context of 10, 20, 30%? Typically, you'd be happy with an average of 3% appreciation. Of course, it's different. You go to Porac, Pampanga years ago, you probably would have not thought Ayala would come there. Now they have Alviera. Alviera, from the time that it was launched, was only this much. It's actually now 9 times higher because it's almost completed. But you see, if I'm holding to this land and I'm just simply believing that the value is increasing, then you're losing a great deal of opportunity. Bankers would tell you that. We'd tell you that. We'd tell you, look, you may want to consider banks are offering loans. Now, your property can be collateralized as a loan. Then that makes it you valuing, meaning you're putting an actual money equivalent to that property, borrow that one, come up with a very sound business activity, push that business, you still keep your property, you pay off your loans, you eventually grow. So let me repeat. We have been told by our grandparents, look, the best asset to keep is land. But some of us took that very literally. We just kept it. But if you're interested to put up a business, you want to expand your business, talk to your banks. We can help you. It's not like I'm interested to get that land from you. That's not our job. That's not our model. Banks are not in the business of getting collaterals. We are in the business of helping businesses grow. And sometimes it's really just about that collateral that we get to provide that assistance to grow. Maybank has been successfully launching all our SME business. So like BDO and all the other banks, we adhere to the request of BSP to actually add more opportunities for the Filipinos. So with that, I would like to give this opportunity to say maraming salamat po for having Maybank. And hopefully, we can do business or we can help you do business with others. Thank you.